friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I'm really excited to be a part again of the Fermented February collaboration put on by Anna over at Fermented Homestead. You will find the link to her channel in the description box down below, as well as the links to all the other channels that are participating in this collaboration. So what's happening is all through the month of December, there's different channels are putting out their own fermenting related videos. So I was able to be a part of this last year, and I made both a natural soda and a vinegar using dehydrated goods. And today I'm going to be doing dehydrated goods again, but to make kimchi. And make sure that you join in and watch these videos and comment under each video, and you will be entered into a drawing that Anna puts on every Monday through the month of February during her live shows on Monday nights. So you want to also make sure that you drop in on Anna's shows on Monday nights so you can find out who won the drawing for some giveaways that week. So let's get to this kimchi. So this will be the second time I've made kimchi out of dehydrated goods. My first time was just a trial run to see what I thought, because I'm really liking the idea of dehydrating up cabbage and everything I need. So that way, when I'm in the mood for kimchi, I can just whip it together and I don't even have to worry about having the fresh produce on hand. And this worked great, and I really, really like it. Now, one thing you'll find about the dehydrated kimchi, because the way it's made, it's gonna keep some of its texture and chewiness, as opposed to kimchi made out of fresh produce, especially if you let it ferment for a long time, where the dehydrated stuff is always going to hang on to some of that crispness, and I love that about it. And this can even work for sauerkraut. And try it with a small amount first and see if that's going to be a texture you like before you dedicate yourself to making even a quart jar like I'm starting today, or several quart jars, or a half gallon, or whatever it is like you like to do. Now, just so you know, I've been making kimchi for many years. I know it's been well over 20 years, because my son was about 6 years old, my oldest son, when I started making it, and he loved it right off the bat, and I make it pretty spicy. So, and he's what, 31 now? So yeah, it's been a while since I started doing kimchi. And when I first started it, I did it the traditional way, using the longer running cold fermentation process in the refrigerator, and where Koreans typically will bury their crocks in the ground. Then I learned about a fermentation starter, a ginger bug in that case, for making wines and meads, and I decided to start experimenting, making my own types of fermentation starter out of whatever I felt like using it, and then tried using it for fermenting many things besides just wines and meads. And I love it. It's now what I use for everything. So I have a pretty in-depth video on making the fermentation starter. It's easy. It's pretty much free. You can make it out of any produce you have on hand. It doesn't have to be ginger. Now, this particular one does have ginger root in it, but it initially started off as a dandelion fermentation starter. I've made them out of apples, raspberries, strawberries, peaches, raisins, red clovers, all kinds of different things, dried and fresh goods. Rhubarb, there's another one. So this is my go-to for any fermentation I do. So what I'm going to do is, I have about 2 cups of dried cabbage right here. You can use green or red. I was thinking about using red in this one, but I thought in this case I'm going to go ahead and stick with the green. But red cabbage does make an excellent kimchi, by the way, and I love it. But anyway, I wanted to make sure for this that I could see all the colors of everything, and red cabbage does turn everything the same color, which is purple. So I'm going to start by sprinkling just some of that. Let me get a canning funnel, because, you know, I can't do anything without making a mess. There. Anyway, I'll put a little bit more in there, and we'll throw some of these little stray pieces in there. Now, the traditional way I used to do it was I mixed everything in a big bowl, then packed it into my jars. But anymore, I do it this way, whether I'm using fresh ingredients or dried ingredients, where I just layer everything. Right here, I have carrots that from our own garden that I dehydrated up, and I've been using. I love these, so good. And I'll be sprinkling a little bit of those in along the way, along with some dried organic ginger. So my first time dehydrating ginger, and I left the skins on. So I tried a little piece of, oh man, it smells so good. So I tried a little piece of this right after dehydrating it, and I could not believe how spicy it was. So good. So I'm going to be doing a lot more dehydrating ginger. So I'll sprinkle a little bit of that in. And I keep these open because I'll keep coming back to them. Right here I have some sliced garlic. Now I do grow garlic, but I do tend to buy a lot of garlic too. And I get my sliced garlic. They carry organic sliced garlic at Mother Earth Products. And so that's where I get that. You'll find a link to them in the description box down below. Same thing with the white onions, which I'll also be adding, along with what's remaining of the dehydrated green onions from my own garden. I wish I had more green onions left because I'd like to have a lot more green in there. So I'll sprinkle a little bit of that in. And then I'm going to put in some red pepper flakes, just a little pinch here and there. Even though I like using my own pepper powder or even cayenne pepper ground in this, I still like using the flakes because I love the color that they add. And then obviously how spicy you make this or the amount of vegetables and things that you add is going to be all up to you. So I'm not giving measurements, I'm just showing you how I'm putting this together. So I'm going to put in some more cabbage. And actually that took up quite a bit of it. I still have more here because I just wanted to start with 2 cups and see what I end up with. So then I'll layer this again, the ginger, the carrots. So basically I'm just kind of putting a pinch of everything else in between the layers. You like lots of garlic. Now I'm going to be adding more, but I'm going to go ahead and add the spices such as the salt and the pepper. Now the traditional method of making kimchi, you would typically use salt and sprinkle it on your fresh vegetables and let it sit overnight. That's how I did it. It would break everything down, draw a lot of the moisture out, then rinse everything off because otherwise that's a lot of salt and it may inhibit your fermentation process. But usually enough salt will stay in there to add some flavor. But in this case, since I'm not using the brine method, I just put the amount of salt that I would add to for the sake of flavor, which is going to be at least about a teaspoon. I'm going to put a little bit more. Sometimes it seems like my kimchi needs to be just a little saltier. And then I'll go ahead and add a little bit of this is my homegrown ground Chinese 5-color pepper. And I might put some more on the top. Now I'm going to do another layer and see where we're at with the remaining cabbage and then possibly add even more. Because what my goal is here is, the last time I did this, I think I filled the jar up halfway full. Not really sure how much it was going to fill up when I added the water. So this time I'm going for 3/4 of the way full, which would be 3 cups of dried material. Okay, so I have my jar. I want to show you what it looks like so far. So I got it 3/4 of the way full. I ended up being able to put a lot more cabbage in there than I thought. And I'm going to put 1 more pinch of this pepper. I like it nice and spicy. And usually I can tell after it sits for a day if it needs a little more pepper or not just by the color. So it's going to all depend on how spicy you like it. You may even want to leave the hot pepper out altogether if you don't like spice and just use everything else. The garlic and the ginger is going to be kind of spicy on its own. Now, here's where I add my fermentation starter. I like to add it at the top so it kind of washes through everything. And what you need is, when it comes to a fermentation starter, the amount you use is going to depend on the size you're making, obviously. And it's really easy. It's a 1/4 cup for every quart, which means if you're making a 1/2 gallon, you use a 1/2 cup. If you're making a whole gallon, a whole cup. A 1/4 cup per quart of the liquid. So I like to use a little strainer. I'm going to pour that off and measure out 1/4 cup. It could be more than that. You can add as much as you want as long as you have at least a 1/4 cup. So sometimes I don't even bother measuring it. I just pour it in there because I go by sight most of the time. So I'm going to pour that starter in there. And then here is where I take the rest of my starter, because one thing about your fermentation starter is you got to feed it periodically. I keep it in the fridge so I don't have to feed it every day. And if I use it enough, I don't have to feed it much more than that. And I'll put in approximately a teaspoon of organic cane sugar. That's my preferred choice when making something like this. I try to stay away from the high mineral sugars because it can kill your fermentation or slow it way down. Honey is another great option. And then I top it off with my filtered rainwater. And the reason I say that is it doesn't have to be filtered rainwater. I just don't recommend using city tap water because of the chlorine and chloramine it contains. So you can boil most of that out, but you still want it to be room temperature when you go to use that. Then I just put my lid on. It has silicone in here that's going to keep it from leaking. I shake it up, then I loosen it a bit, and then I let it sit out for a day before I put it back in my refrigerator. So tomorrow I'll stick it back in the fridge. So now that I've got that, I can go ahead and top this off with water. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch this for the next, I'll check on it tomorrow. And if it looks like it could use more vegetables or less, I can take some out. Like I said, last time I only filled it up halfway, but it definitely needed more. I had more liquid than I would have preferred to have. And again, this also has a silicone ring in it. That way I can put the lid on tightly initially so I can shake it up, get everything mixed in really well. And you just got to keep in mind your dried ingredients are going to soak up some of that water and then fill the jar up even more. So I hope I didn't overdo this, but we'll find out. First, I'll put a picture of what the one I did last year looked like when I first got it mixed up, and then a picture of what it looked like after it was done 3 days later. And what I'll also be doing, so you can see that, now what I'll be doing is putting some images of what this looks like now, and then what it looks like over the next few days. Now, typically your kimchi is going to be ready in about 3 to 4 days. This will all depend on it doesn't matter if it's dried or fresh material that you're using. It's all going to depend on the temperature of the place that you're fermenting it. If it's a colder temperature, it can take as much as 2 weeks for it to get nice and fizzy and the flavor that you want. The flavor matters too. I mean, some people maybe like it a little less fermented, some people like it more. It will take on a more sour flavor the longer you allow it to ferment. And so what I like to do with this is just periodically come in and shake it, then loosen that lid just a little bit so that it can allow the gases to escape. And then I use one of my handmade coasters here to set that on, because not only does it look nice and it doesn't scratch up my counter that way, it also will help absorb some of the liquids if it does kind of bubble over. It might take up to 3 days before it gets really fizzy. And again, the amount of time you will allow it to sit is going to be up to you. You can just taste it and see how it's coming along. If you want a little bit more sour, you think it just needs more time for all the flavors to mingle, then let it sit for a few more days. It's not going to hurt it for it to sit for up to 2 weeks. And then you can store it in your fridge after that, or keep it in a cool pantry if you want. I prefer these days to make up smaller amounts at a time, because back when I first was making it, I was eating it all the time. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so I always have a lot going. And though I still really like the kimchi, I don't eat it near as much as I used to. So I always just do a quart at a time. Now, some other options I wanted to share that you might want to consider is if you grew cucumbers and you dehydrated any up. I didn't dehydrate any of my cucumbers this year, but the thought occurred to me this way too late, is that if I would like to try this with dried cucumbers, because I love cucumber kimchi as well. But cucumbers can get a little soft. Well, I just finally finished off the last of my, still have a tiny bit of some cucumber kimchi I made back in the summer. And I used horseradish leaves in that, fresh from the garden, and that keeps those cucumbers nice and crisp. So I'm always surprised. I always tend to forget. I'll eat most of the jar and then forget it, and it gets buried, and oh, here it is. It's still good, and the cucumbers are still crisp. So if I was to do a dried cucumber kimchi, I would then also add some dried horseradish leaves to that. I do hope you enjoyed this video and that you're enjoying this collaboration. And don't forget to check out the other channels I'll be linking to down below, as well as Anna's channel, Fermented Homestead, because she's the one that's hosting this whole collaboration. And to jump in on her shows on Monday nights and comment on the other people's videos so you can be entered to win whatever it is that Anna's going to be giving away. And also, thank you, Anna, for inviting me yet again to be a part of this. I really enjoy this collaboration. A lot of fun. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.